I hope this session is going to be an enriching one for you, just the last closing one. And we're going to be talking here about the role of autonomous vehicles in enhancing or diminishing passive safety requirements. Now, you must have heard the entire day about, passive safety, how they're elevating safety in cars. And if you talk about the Indian market, I think the last 3 to 4 years has seen a significant game up in terms of vehicle safety, particularly driven by regulations wherein now dual airbags are standard, and most OEMs, including Tata Motors, have started giving 6 airbags also in their cars as standard safety features. So the topic here is very unique, very different. Globally, we are seeing this technological shift towards autonomous vehicles. A lot of companies, including Tesla, Google, Apple, are working on these technologies towards just eliminating the driver, which to me, I believe, is the fundamental problem there when it comes to hazards on the roads and safety hazards when it comes to vehicles and road safety. So we just take this conversation ahead, and I just want to start off by putting a question out there to all the finalists here, and maybe I'll begin with you, Ms. Anil. So what is the fundamental shift that you see is going to happen when we talk about autonomous vehicles vis-a-vis traditional vehicles, and how is that going to change the role of passive safety features, airbags, seat belts, when we talk about these cars, which are still a long way ahead in the Indian market, but I think we're eventually going to see them, right?
Yeah. So, it's not going to happen overnight. So, we will see a long period over which they'll change. Passive safety will not go away, but it has to evolve. If we were to talk of an autonomous vehicle, I guess we will not have a standard driver, co-driver seating. The seating position may change. The people, the demographics, people, today, unless you are driving, your kids are not in the car. But once autonomous vehicle is there, if maybe only the kids moving around, aged or people, who may not be moving around a lot will actually start moving around a lot because now the burden of driving is taken away. So the internal layouts, the demographics are going to change. So passive safety has to evolve. Maybe it gets a little more complicated for all we know because you could have conference seating or you could be seen sideways rather than facing forward or whatever. But passive safety will not go away, but it has to evolve as a consumer behavior within the autonomous vehicle will change compared to what we see today.
Right. Mr. Ramanakan, you have your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, as we talk about autonomous emergency braking, the immediate use case that I see is if your vehicle has this feature and it brakes, so probably there is going to be a massive rear end crash. So I probably believe that it's going to further evolve, looking at enhancing the safety, passive safety from that perspective as well. As to how do you look at the rear crashes more closely and how do you make it better in that sense?
Right. And I'll come to you, Dr. Shashi. You can bring a global perspective here as well, since you're based in the US. So, I think the US market is seeing this biggest transition right now towards autonomous driving technologies, which have increasingly be offered in a lot of cars out there. So, your sense of, safety going forward with ADs, autonomous vehicles, also becoming a mainstay. How do you see the amalgamation of passive safety technologies with active safety technologies in vehicles?
Good question that requires multiple answers. I'll try to bit upon a few key points. One thing, as we have increased technologies, the ability of the technology to perform consistently exceeds that of the human. Depending upon our level of fatigue or attention, we could vary. So the reaction times and response times to stimuli outside the vehicle would be much shorter. So that's a good thing per se. But on the other hand, as I mentioned this morning, as we rely more and more on technologies, we begin to take them for granted. And we lose our ability to jump in and take control or handle the situation as quickly as we could otherwise. So especially if you had some element or elements or systems, subsystems fail in the active safety domain, passive safety features become absolutely critical. So we cannot do away with passive safety. Even in the longer term, there will be some seatbelts, I think, are there to stay. As an example, a commercial aircraft can fly from one airport to another without a pilot doing anything with the controls. But why do we have seatbelts on aircraft?
It's true. Mr. Barot, I'll come to you, like Dr. Shashi just mentioned that, you are not going to see passive safety systems go away even in the future when we might have, autonomous vehicles riding all over the place. So from a regulatory perspective, what do you see? How are the regulations going to evolve to enable this technology in the future and, to ensure end-to-end protection of the vehicles, of its occupants, and of other motorists on the road?
You see, as I see it, I'm reminded of my days when I established the homologation system in the country in the 1990s. I go back to 30 years because when we introduced this system in this country, how it went along, introducing the various regulations step by step. It was a step-by-step exercise. And it started with the setting up of a permanent standing committee of what they call a senior committee. For which I was the founder chairman, so I remained chairman for 20 years. So it took almost 15 years to bring various regulations, one by one. So now when you are talking of a system of your autonomous knob, we have to talk it in phases. I think in India, first phase will be seen is the introduction of the ADAS. That is the simplest what we can call. But in today's terminology, it is complex. Autonomous is still way ahead. Maybe in India, we may things in slower way towards the end of this particular decade, as a like in research, and that to a enclosed forums like airports, or for that matter, some public sector undertaking, or the fixed places where this vehicle doesn't come on the road. So just to give you an example of your ADAS features, today ADAS feature is being introduced in a adopt manner based on the experience of the European countries. And our clarity, which is being introduced as an optional feature, as I see it, that optional feature is being introduced without anybody carrying out the testing in our country. First of all, I can challenge the government, even the testing agencies, on what basis you are allowing the ADAS to be produced in the country without any homologation test being carried. And that means today what is happening is they are not being calibrated according to our traffic conditions. They are calibrated according to the European disciplined traffic, organized traffic conditions, not for our sort of the multidisciplinary sort of a thing. It's not that way. And what is happening is all these people who are introducing the ADAS feature in our country, they are introducing is with a back-end application. The back-end application is collecting the data, which will be then analyzed by the parent companies. Then they will recalibrate the equipment and then they introduce in India. That means that calibration is taking place at the cost of our customers. It must be kept in group. And it will be more dangerous also sometimes in our countries. For example, we never had the accidents to that extent from the air. I think we've been encountering that. The moment this AEB and things like that, authority-based system is introduced in our country, we will start getting hitting from the back in our type of a traffic condition. So I think regulation, that's why industry is also hesitant to introduce even a regulation like automotive emergency braking system. I know the industry is asking for a period of 5 years to introduce this in our country. The last meeting they have said that no, we need more time. That is justified also because you have to see it. So I think it will take time. Another element which I find is, if from the international point of view, that autonomous system is one thing, it is based on the sensors. Lot of your cameras, lot of your LiDAR system, sensors, all sorts of things. Now, these all systems work on a wireless principle or computer system as far as the control system is concerned, or embedded electronics is there in that, like ECU and other things. All can be hacked. There is already an issue of cybersecurity. And we are today not yet that true from B2X communication, because it has got involvement of B2X communication also. All these things can be hacked. So that is very dangerous for our autonomous system to work as it is. So it's a very involved subject. It is not that easy. It will be a very gradual manner. The regulation will also not be universal. I will say that has to be country specific also, and we have to work a lot on that.
Right. I'll take that to you, Mr. Ramanathan. I mean, what Ms. Panod just mentioned about regulations, and they need to be country specific. Your thoughts about it, you are in the testing space and you do these, I'm sure you must be doing these ADAS validations day in and day out. What is your experience? What is happening in that front right now?
Yeah, I mean, most of what he said is correct in terms of that this technology is evolving in India at this point in time. And when a technology is evolving, you have a lot of failures, and you learn from these failures, you test it and validate it. And over a period of time, as you rightly used the word calibration, I mean, we call it tuning here, that we tune these vehicles or these sensors or systems to Indian conditions. So probably similar sensors which might work in European conditions may not work in Indian conditions. We have really difficult atmospheric conditions as well as very difficult traffic conditions. Our driving patterns are very different. So the algorithm they use, the kind of traffic objects that we had, they're all very different. Yeah. So probably let's say it's still evolving, and but it's evolving quite fast. The way I see it from the last 3 or 4 years that I'm doing testing in terms of ADAS, it's evolving rapidly. Yeah, that means that the cars which probably failed in a very massive way 3 years back today are probably failing in only some use cases. So we are getting evolved. We're collecting a lot of data across from India. Most OEMs are collecting data. They are doing testing. They are improving we call it scenarios, that we have to test it for hundreds and thousands of scenarios. So that is evolving. But at the same time, these scenarios have to be brought in across into validation. India is not used to virtual validation in terms of homologation yet in that level, except for some passive safety cases. So we need to learn about virtual homologation using, virtual validation. So in ADAS, we cannot test it for 200,000 scenarios for homologation. That's not possible. So only a certain number of cases can be tested on the track, to validate it. So a large number of these cases have to be tested on the virtual side. So it's got to be, testing both on the track as well as on the virtual side. So we are still adapting and learning as we go forward.
Right. And while the underlying notion here from all of your first comments is that, passive safety still needs to be there in vehicles to complement ADAS and active safety features. Mr. Anil, as Tata Motors, you're one OEM which is offering ADAS in your products like a Harrier and Safari right now. Your thoughts on, what Mr. Ramanathan just mentioned about calibration, and how are you going about offering these safety features in your vehicles right now? Are you testing them locally in India? Are you calibrating them locally for our varying needs? I mean, India is a massive country and everyone knows about the road infrastructure and the road traffic scenarios that we can have there.
Yeah, so to start with, yes, we are focusing a lot on Indian use cases like, identifying additional objects that Europeans are not used to and are not usually considered. But it will be difficult for me to say, we are covering every day, because I guess we have still not even been able to document all the hundreds and thousands of cases of scenarios that you might encounter. But, you sort of take due care and look at worst case scenarios and try and design the system for that. And that would essentially make sure the system works in most of the cases. So the effort has been to identify something specific to India, identify the worst case scenarios and try and validate the system for that. But difficult to say that, it's like 100% all real use cases to be covered. That's yet to happen because, like Mr. Anand, we are all collecting data and we need a lot of data to be able to even document all the potential scenarios on real roads.
Right. And then going forward as an OEM, you will continue to stress upon passive safety features in your future products as well.
Yes, it will continue till, I guess it might be quite some time when 100% vehicles are automated driving or autonomous, then maybe the scenario will change. But otherwise, till then, we are going to have a mix and not 100% cars will be autonomous. And so we will continue to push on passive safety, and there's still a lot of scope to improve safety performance there. We will continue to push that above.
Dr. Shashi, if I can come to you, Mr. Banod, he mentioned in his comment, last comment about, tapping into data and, formulating these regulations for the Indian market. Data is one big element here, and, it also sort of connects with cybersecurity, and with data, there are chances that you are getting into different scenarios of misuses and, multiple other hazardous plays. So again, if you can give us a sense of the global perspective where how is regulation shaping up and enabling this shift towards autonomous driving?
We'll do that. So let's start with the quote. You have statistics, damn statistics, and lies. It's how you use data, how you interpret statistics. Same way, data can be very useful, very helpful in a number of areas ranging from policy making to tactical and operational situations. Increasingly, we have humongous amounts of data that are being generated every second. And in the transport domain, as we travel, I would venture to say at least 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5, 75% to 80% of the people on the roadways in India have a smartphone. That is generating a lot of data, whether you know it or not. Very, very, very few people disable features on their phones that give permission to whoever is your carrier to tap into your data. Now, same way, vehicles have technologies where we can use it for good, the data. When somebody's in a vehicle with a phone, yes, that's what companies like Google are doing for mapping. That's very good if we can help improve the accuracy of our maps, the streets, so on and so forth. But at the same time, there are increased threats of hacking into our phones, into vehicles. There was a very good example, I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago, where 2 hackers said, we are going to hack into such and such a vehicle, showed how they took control of that vehicle. Yes, there are tools and techniques to thwart these threats. It is up to us as users to be informed, to restrict the use of data that we generate. Some of it is voluntary, some of it may be regulatory, that we are required to give up. In order to be able to use such and such a vehicle, you have to do that. That may be for safety reasons, for operational reasons. But there's also this feedback loop. The more data that we get from the operating environment, the better we are able to calibrate or recalibrate or change the mechanism. So there are lots of benefits, but at the same time, there are risks. And it is for us as individuals, as a society, as organizations, OEMs, groups of OEMs, regulatory agencies to figure out how we tap into this. It goes beyond the transport sector, our electric grid, our communications networks, our water, wastewater systems. All of these are controlled in the internet, as Mr. Banod said. There's a potential for hacking. How do we do? Now, I'll also just go one step beyond what you asked me, pick up on what Mr. Banod said, is the effectiveness of AVs as whether it is threats or rear-end collisions with what he was talking about. But the effectiveness of AVs and safety technologies is a function of a number of factors that includes the percent of market penetration, as Anil talked about earlier. How many vehicles or what percent of vehicles have this? If we have a lot of vehicles that have this, you can avoid the rear-end collision because the vehicle behind, trade vehicle, has the safety too. It's the operating domain where you're looking at higher speed, higher volume facilities versus lower speed, higher volume facilities. And then think about non-motorized users, pedestrians, bicyclists, and others, vendors on four-wheel vehicles that are on our roadways. How might we use maybe mobile phone technologies to alert them of potential threats where they are maybe in arm's way? And you're talking about maybe a fraction of a second to 2 seconds is the latency tag, but that could be a big difference. Once again, there's a threat of a false alarm. And it will take time as we learn more and more, we will be able to control those threats, minimize those threats, but I don't know if we can eliminate those threats for here.
Hey. Mr. Vinod, and just take it forward to what Dr. Shashi just mentioned. Until we are able to take control of all these, different scenarios under active safety, how do you see the industry can still innovate further to ensure end-to-end safety of vehicles and as well as the road users by simply upping the ante on passive safety features?
See that probably have a present system of your passive safety devices, like say, but you have the seat belt. That itself will mean a change. Once you are looking it is autonomous mode, in that sort of a situation, person will not be doing any steering, it is all automatic. That being so, the person that is sitting in any bus, you see, normally when you are driving, you are sitting in a particular position. But when somebody else is driving, so you are free, basically. When you may be seen it like this. So that means your entire seatbelt system has to totally undergo a change. So one has to think that existing seatbelt system, whether it can remain the same or it may appropriate undergo a change altogether. So I think as we move now, all passive system, in my opinion, is also undergoing the change also as we move now. As we just now mentioned, somebody showed us that the body dummies. You see that same your passive dummies, they get changed to the body dummy. And I think whole system may totally change. So as we move along, all passive devices which are there today, I think that is also undergoing a change. And as we move along, all those devices may not be the same what we are having today. In another 10 years, they'll be totally different. Apart from the electronics. Of course, the electronics will enter in a big way. After 10 years, I think most of this will become electronics. So, and the biggest problem what I foresee will be a cyber security in this and hacking. Any vehicle can be hacked on this. You see? And because you will not be only dependent on the electronics which is embedded in the car, but you are also dependent on electronics which is existing in the infrastructure. For example, you'll be communicating with the infrastructure also. So that also will be giving some signal to that. That will also be blocking. So I think we'll be playing more role in electronics in future and controlling that. I think electronics will be controlling the entire automobile industry next 10 years. I think with the gradually, then the evolution as far as mechanical side is concerned. So I think we have to apply our mind more towards the electronics. And today I think our mechanical people have to undergo some courses in electronics that what I eat in the future. So, but what I
Right. I want to get your comment, Ms. Ramanathan, like Mr. Bhanot just mentioned. So in terms of functional safety, I mean, he talked about cybersecurity being the big sort of hazard going forward with increasing electronics in vehicles. Your thoughts about, how do you see the industry coping up with it, and how do you see the industry managing these challenges going forward?
Yeah, I think everybody started working towards this threat on cybersecurity. There are teams now working towards this. There are also regulations coming across for cybersecurity. So this is definitely a threat going forward as more and more cars are getting connected. Today already almost all EVs are already connected. Most vehicles are connected. Every vehicle is sending data all the time. So, and if the vehicle is going to take decisions based on the data that is going to get from outside, obviously, we need to have certain protocols, certain ways in which what data is to be taken important for the communication, whether it is coming from the right source. Yeah, so a lot of these security features are getting implemented. I think almost all OEMs are and tier ones are working towards cybersecurity. There are departments now in every company working towards this. I think ICAT and others, homologation agencies, are also having courses, or let's say they're also starting to work towards homologation on cybersecurity as well. So this is going to be a very hot topic going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Mr. Anil, as an OEM, from an OEM's perspective, how do you see this change going forward? How do you plan to manage it in terms of, focusing your entire engineering resources on either making the cabin safer by virtue of passive safety, or focusing on, making the A&E architecture more safe by ensuring that, nobody is able to hack into that particular system? And this is regardless of ICE or ETs, because, even the ICE platforms are going a radical transformation with respect to their A&E architectures.
Yeah, so it's not one or the other, it's actually both. So we do have sort of the research programs going on, development programs going on. Passive safety, I think a lot of knowledge already exists somewhere or the other in the world. But when it comes to active safety, I think everybody is learning. Maybe US is a little, some companies are maybe 2 steps ahead of the others. And when it comes to cybersecurity, I think they are almost together. So there is a lot of research happening. Tier ones are going to play a very big role in this, and bringing in the right technologies. And now I think even the tier ones are all transforming into technology suppliers rather than part suppliers. Plus, there are now consortiums within the auto industry working. This is a problem that all of us have to solve together. And standardization is going to play a very big role. Otherwise, trying to develop encryption strategies for individual OEMs by each of us is almost impossible. We just can't afford. So, you will see all 3 things happening: collaborative research, standardization across the industry, trying to make sure all of us can then, it becomes easy to cross deploy and make it more economical. Third is about learning through the data that is available. For passive safety, at least we could talk about the standard tests, crash tests, and standard scenarios, and we could do something. But for active safety, if you don't know what scenarios are happening on the road, you just cannot be effective. So the third element about actually learning from the data and collecting a lot more data and actually learning what's happening becomes really, it almost becomes impossible without it. So I think you're going to see action on all 3 fronts. We are going to collaborate a lot. We will push for a lot of standardization in the industry, and of course, continue the learning from actual real labs.
And if I may talk about, the consumer perception right now, and Tata Motors is a great success story. In the last 4 to 5 years, you've seen tremendous success in terms of some of your new models, when they scored very high in the G NCAP and now the B NCAP crash tests. The sales of those cars have really gone through the roof. So from a consumer perception, what do you see the consumer asking from OEMs in terms of safer cars in the future?
Yeah, I think, standard rating systems like the G NCAP or B NCAP make it very easy for consumers to take an informed choice. Rather than get confused to say, I've done this test, that guy got that feature, this guy got that technology. I think for them it is now much easier. So we need to continue to, enhance these protocol and make it easy for the consumer to make a choice. But my own personal experience and the way we see from Tata Motors, the consumer is now very well educated with all the internet and access to, through and there are thousands of now influencers on the YouTube talking about technology, safety, and all these. I feel Indian consumer is probably one of the fastest to ask and absorb technology. There are multiple examples beyond auto industry also. Okay, but within the auto industry, we do find the consumer is getting educated very fast. He is ready to try it out and actually is demanding new technology. And we have clearly seen shift from vehicles which are feature-rich selling more.
Absolutely. There is a strong premiumization which is happening in the market right now. And you're seeing models equipped with a lot of tech which are high on sale.
So I don't even know when premiumization is happening. But irrespective of that, people don't mind going for probably a smaller car, but they all surely want to go for the fully loaded versions. And that clearly shows the consumer is now focused on technology. Right.
Dr. Shashin, if I come to you, if you could give us a sense of broad technology trends that we could expect going forward, maybe in another decade's time, when we talk about safety systems in cars, be passive, actors, whatever.
Truck. I don't have the wisdom to give you a definitive answer as to what likely will happen 5 years or 10 years from now, maybe even next year. But what is clear are the emerging roles of sensors, sensor systems, and sensor technologies being increasingly integrated not just into the vehicles, but to the road environment, infrastructure environment. And so we've heard the terms B2V, B2X. So that is something that is going to continue, and that will help improve not just safety, but the operational efficiencies that we can achieve on the roadways, so the capacity that we can serve the operating speed, so on. That is one. Two, as we just talked about over the last 15 minutes or so, as we transition away from the traditional IC engine type vehicles, what we are going to see are computerized systems on wheels, much more than mechanically engineered systems. And how do we do that? So I'm going to pivot on this a little and say we need to look now with children in middle school and high school before they get to college as to how can we help prepare the workforces of the future who will be the leaders 20 years from now. One, as they grow into those roles, how do they adopt these technologies? Role of data and cybersecurity is absolutely going to be critical. So how do we help prepare it? How do we help prepare those who are already in the workforce to reskill or upskill to embrace these changes that are coming up? And things I can think about are not a specific subject or topic, but to be able to think critically or analyze situations, analyze opportunities, identify threats, and how will we work on. So it's going to be more data, more sensor systems and integration of these. Issues related to sharing data. Can we do that voluntarily? Is that going to be mandated or regulated? And standardization across platforms, across OEMs, and so on. So these are some of the things that I foresee happening in the next week.
Mr. Manoj, you've been a verbal location expert, so I take what Dr. Shashi just mentioned, about with increasing electronification in cars and standardization and the role of data. So, I want to understand from you, what role do you think Indian companies can play here when we talk about devising such technologies, not just for India, but also for global markets? Because now, if we talk about some of the safety features that we present and emissions as well, I think we are at par with what is, there on the global front. So, do you see that there is an optimism about India to be able to develop these futuristic technology solutions for domestic as well as global markets?
You see, what I feel is, I'll give you, when we were entering into the phase of in our country for crash tests and other regulations in the automobile industry, ARI was the only institute in the country, others had followed. I had just set up the ICAT at that time. They had given them grant of rather a loan about 20 crores LP to set up the center where the relay is sitting there. So what we did was, we had very extensive sort of a survey done through a collection of road data, for example. You see that probably like 50 to 60,000 kilometers a vehicle, I think Ramana Pradesh agree with me, and collected the entire road conditions in the country and the various terrain and all these things. And that data was given to the industry to develop their heaters for that. Otherwise, they didn't have any data. Similarly, I have been always advising Dr. Delil also to the ARI to take a project install the latest ADAS feature in their vehicle, run that vehicle in our environment, in our country, collect the data, and then share with the industry. Today, what is happening is, as I mentioned to you, some of the people who are introducing the IaaS feature, whatever the features they are introducing, at the back end, they are hanging in application. They are collecting the entire data of your vehicle, how it is running in their application. And then they are going to remodify it and then reintroduce it. And that sort of a thing has to be done like ICAT or AI, has to carry out that. That will take 1 crore of rupees to carry out this thing. It's not going to be easy to collect the data from whole country, depending on our traffic conditions. From outside, nobody is going to do for you. No. So I think it is our country, we have to collect the data. And I think ICAT and AI are the best people equipped for this sort of a exercise. You see, and then that can be transferred to the industry also, and the industry can learn out of it. Otherwise, at this moment, what is happening is whatever feature we are just getting the thing from outside. Software from outside, sensor from outside, we are just implanting, nothing else. It's not that it is being made in the country. But this is not going to work. This is a very important thing. We have to do some R&D and practical work which is relevant to our country. And we have to initiate this thing. Under a such project or which project, whatever it is, government can give a grant or something like that and start the exercise, which is very important. It will take 2-3 years to not take step. Otherwise, we'll run in a very wrong way. And we can't bring our regulation. In this particular thing, I don't think we can copy the regulation for VC also. We have to make our own regulation and modify it. Time will do it. Up to 2-3 years, either we start now or we do it after.
So you're saying there's a high scope for localization of these technologies.
It has to be custom built. This is for our environment. Nobody else is going to do it.
And do you also believe that whatever works in India's condition, it is sort of ready to then function in other markets as well?
Yes, all Asian countries. Because Asian countries also never like our countries. So I think we can be a good exporter also for them. And then not only that, we can do homologation for their vehicles in our countries. So I think it's an opportunity that we must cash on it. I think ICAT should take the repro.
Right. Mr. Ramanathan, I want to understand one challenge here from you in terms, you want to add?
Yes, I can add on it. We've been working on this ADAS area for probably a decade now, and I believe that India has been in the forefront of development of, let's say, software, validation of scenarios already for the last 10 years. Thousands and thousands of engineers in Bangalore, Chennai, Pune have been working on this domain for quite some time now. So, but for European and American companies. So, most of the ADAS development in the last 10 years across the globe, you will find that there is always a footprint in India for it. And quite a few Indian companies today are working really in forefront technology in terms of ADAS development or autonomous development in Indian conditions. So, I think they are rapidly progressing across in this area, and probably if anything works in India, it will work anywhere across in the world. It doesn't matter Asia, Europe, US, it will work everywhere in the world. So already people have started implementing AI as well. People talked about supercomputers. Already the car is a gizmo and, it's more or less going towards in that domain. So we are started using very powerful processing capabilities that we have inside the car and quickly analyzing what's coming across in terms of data and also interpreting that data and taking decisions accordingly. So a lot of work is going on. You will see that in the next few years, India will be one of the leaders in terms of development of autonomous vehicles in the world.
But as a challenge, do you see there are infrastructural challenges? And I'm talking here about homologation, and testing. Do we really have the infra to test ADAS systems right now in India?
Honestly, no. If you ask for standard European conditions, probably if you want to do a straight line A, B or a couple of scenarios, yes, it is possible. If you ask me for all type of Indian scenarios, we do not have today a dedicated ADAS test track. Nobody has actually developed an ADAS test track as of today. The first test track probably is coming up at ARAI, probably in Talegaon, probably by next year. It's already, they have started constructing. ICAT is probably thinking about one. So we are in the process of setting up ADAS test facilities exclusively for ADAS. So today we are adapting the existing infrastructure, probably creating lanes over there or creating some lane markings and using it for ADAS. we are famous for jugaad anyway. So it's not that we make use of every facility we have.
Right. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And Dr. Shashi, Mr. Bhanot, Mr. Ramanathan, Mr. Amit, thank you so much for sharing all your valuable thoughts in this. And I hope this was an enriching conversation for our audience here. And thank you very much, everyone, for your patient visit.